Hello students, today I will continue with the second part of cholesterol metabolism and lipoprotein. Topics of discussion will be on atherosclerosis, primary disorders of lipid metabolism, cholesterol degradation, and on bile salts and acids. Atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is characterized by intimal lesions called atheromas, also called atheromatous or atherosclerotic plaques that protrude into vascular lamina. An atheromatous plaque consists of a raised lesion with a soft yellow grumous core of lipid, mainly consisting of cholesterol and cholesterol esters, covered by a firm white fibrous cap. Besides obstructing blood flow, atherosclerotic plaques weaken the underlying media and can themselves rupture, causing acute catastrophic vessel thrombosis. In atherosclerosis, there is deposition of cholesterol and cholesterol ester from the plasma lipoproteins into the arterial wall. Diseases in which prolonged elevated levels of VLDL, IDL, chylomicron or LDL occur in the blood, for example diabetes mellitus, lipid nephrosis, hypothyroidism and other conditions of hyperlipidemia, are often accompanied by premature or more severe atherosclerosis. There is also an inverse relationship between HDL2 concentrations and coronary heart disease. Clinical manifestations of atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis of the coronary arteries commonly causes myocardial infarction and angina pectoris. Atherosclerosis of the arteries supplying the central nervous system frequently provokes strokes and transient cerebral ischemia. In the peripheral circulation, atherosclerosis causes intermittent claudication characterized by cramping pain in the legs and gangrene and can jeopardize limb viability. Involvement of the splanchnic circulation can cause mesenteric ischemia. Atherosclerosis can affect the kidneys either directly, for example renal artery stenosis, or as a common site of atheroembolic disease. Initiation of atherosclerosis. Fatty streak represents the initial lesion of atherosclerosis. This arises from focal increases in the content of lipoproteins within regions of the intima. The lipoproteins collect in the intima of arteries because they bind to constituents like glycosaminoglycans of the extracellular matrix, increasing the residence time of the lipid-rich particles within the arterial wall. Lipoprotein particles then undergo oxidative modifications, like LDL is oxidized to oxidize LDL. Such modified lipoprotein particles may trigger a local inflammatory response that signals subsequent steps in lesion formation. The augmented expression of various adhesion molecules for leukocytes recruits monocytes to the site of a nascent arterial lesion. Once adherent, some white blood cells migrate into the intima. Leukocytes in the evolving fatty streak can divide and exhibit augmented expression of receptors for modified lipoproteins, known as scavenger receptors. These mononuclear phagocytes ingest lipids and become foam cells, represented by a cytoplasm filled with lipid droplets. As the fatty streak evolves into a more complicated atherosclerotic lesion, smooth muscle cells migrate from the media through the internal elastic membrane and accumulate within the expanding intima, where they lay down extracellular matrix that forms the bulk of the advanced lesion. In this picture, we can see the cross-section of an arterial wall having an atheromatous plaque. It consists of a necrotic center containing cell debris, cholesterol crystals, foam cells, and calcium. And it has a fibrous cap containing smooth muscle cells, macrophages, foam cells, lymphocytes, collagen, elastin, proteoglycan, and new blood vessels. This picture shows how the atherosclerotic plaque is formed. This is the arterial wall and this is the lumen of the artery. First, there is endothelial injury caused mainly by oxidized LDL. In response to this injury, the monocytes adhere to the endothelial cells and move to the subendothelium or intima and are transformed into macrophages. Then macrophages consume excess modified or oxidized lipoprotein, becoming foam cells. This LDL is oxidized into oxidized LDL, which is triggered by oxidants like superoxide, nitric oxide, hydrogen peroxide, etc., and counteracted by antioxidants like vitamin E, vitamin C or ascorbic acid, and beta carotene. This macrophage preferentially take up this oxidized LDL because high affinity receptors specific for LDL become downregulated when the cell has sufficient cholesterol. And the low affinity, non-specific and non-regulated scavenger receptors take up modified LDL. Next stage is these form cells accumulate releasing growth factors and cytokines that stimulate the migration of spoon muscle cells from the media to the intima. There they proliferate, produce collagen and take up lipid, potentially becoming the foam cells. This is another pictorial representation of the process of atherosclerosis for better understanding. This shows the different layers of the arterial wall like endothelium, intima, media, internal elastic membrane separating intima from the media. First, there is endothelial injury or dysfunction due to different factors like hyperlipidemia, hypertension, smoking, toxins, hemodynamic factors, immune reactions, viruses, etc. In response to this injury, the monocytes adhere to the endothelial cells and emigrate into the intima. Then the excess LDL in the circulation also crosses the endothelial cells, transform into oxidized LDL. These oxidized LDLs are taken up by macrophages to form lipid-laden foam cells, which stimulate cytokines and growth factors, which causes migration of spoon muscle cells from the media to the intima. There is proliferation of spoon muscle cells, migration of spoon muscle cell precursors, and there is extracellular matrix synthesis and extracellular lipids and necrotic cells. Atherosclerosis can be divided into two phases: preclinical phase, usually occurring in the young age, and clinical phase, usually occurring in the middle age to elderly age group. In the preclinical phase, there is first formation of the fatty streak and then fibrofatty plaque, or there is direct formation of fibrofatty plaque. Then there is progression into advanced or vulnerable plaque. In the clinical phase, there are three possibilities. Either there may be aneurysm or weakening of the wall of the artery and then rupture. There will be occlusion of the artery by thrombus formation or the blood clot. Or there will be critical stenosis or complete occlusion of the artery, so the blood supply to the particular organ may be compromised. Risk factors for atherosclerosis can be divided into major risk factors and minor or non-quantifiable risk factors. Major risk factors can again be non-modifiable and modifiable. Non-modifiable risk factors are increasing age, male gender, family history of atherosclerosis, genetic abnormalities. And potentially controllable or modifiable risk factors are hyperlipidemia, hypertension, cigarette smoking, diabetes mellitus, HSCRP or high sensitivity CRP, and homocysteine level in blood. Non-quantifiable risk factors are obesity, having BMI more than 30, physical inactivity, stress, people having type A personality, postmenopausal estrogen deficiency, high carbohydrate intake, presence of lipoprotein A, hardened trans unsaturated fatty acid intake, and infection by the bacteria Chlamydia pneumoniae. Age is the non-modifiable risk factor for atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is a progressive process and begin to precipitate organ injury in middle age or later. Thus, between ages 40 and 60, the incidence of myocardial infarction in men increases fivefold, even though the underlying arterial lesions were probably evolving before that. Death rates from ischemic heart disease rise with each decade, even into advanced age. Gender is another non-modifiable risk factor. Myocardial infarction and other complications of atherosclerosis are uncommon in premenopausal women unless they are otherwise predisposed by diabetes, hyperlipidemia, or severe hypertension. After menopause, however, the incidence of atherosclerosis-related diseases increases and with greater age eventually exceeds that of men. Aside from atherosclerosis, gender also affects a number of parameters that can affect outcomes of ischemic heart disease. Thus, women show differences in hemostasis, infarct healing, and myocardium remodeling. Genetics. The well-established familial predisposition to atherosclerosis and ischemic heart disease is multifactorial. In some instances, it relates to familial clustering of other risk factors such as hypertension or diabetes, whereas in others, it involves well-defined genetic derangements in lipoprotein metabolism such as familial hypercholesterolemia that result in excessively high blood lipid levels. Hyperlipidemia. Hyperlipidemia, more specifically hypercholesterolemia, is a major risk factor for atherosclerosis. The major component of serum cholesterol associated with increased risk is LDL cholesterol. Therefore, it is called bad cholesterol. LDL cholesterol has an essential physiologic role delivering cholesterol to peripheral tissues. In contrast, HDL mobilizes cholesterol from developing and existing atheromas and transports it to the liver for excretion in the bile. Consequently, higher levels of HDL correlate with reduced risk. Hypertension. Hypertension with BP more than 140 by 90 mm of mercury is another major risk factor for atherosclerosis. Both systolic and diastolic levels are important. On its own, hypertension can increase the risk of ischemic heart disease by approximately 60% in comparison with normotensive populations. Left untreated, roughly half of hypertensive patients will die of ischemic heart disease or congestive heart failure, and another third will die of stroke. Left ventricular hypertrophy in many cases probably represents a marker of long-standing functional hypertension. Cigarette smoking. Cigarette smoking is a well-established risk factor in men, and an increase in the number of women who smoke probably accounts for the increasing incidence and severity of atherosclerosis in women. Prolonged smoking of one pack of cigarettes or more daily increases the death rate from ischemic heart disease by 200%. Smoking cessation reduces that risk substantially. Diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus induces hypercholesterolemia as well as markedly increased predisposition to atherosclerosis. Other factors being equal, the incidence of myocardial infarction is twice as high in diabetic as in non-diabetic individuals. There is also an increased risk of strokes and a hundredfold increased risk of atherosclerosis-induced gangrene of the lower extremities. Inflammation. Inflammation is present during all stages of atherogenesis and is intimately linked with atherosclerotic plaque formation and rupture. With the increasing recognition that inflammation does play a significant causal role in ischemic heart disease, assessing systemic inflammatory status has become important in overall risk stratification. While a number of systemic markers of inflammation correlate with ischemic heart disease risk, for example, are interleukin 6, soluble intracellular adhesion molecule 1, CD40 ligand, etc., C-reactive protein has emerged as one of the cheapest and most sensitive. CRP is an acute phase reactant synthesized primarily by the liver. It is downstream of a number of inflammatory triggers and play a major role in the innate immune response by opsonizing bacteria and activating complement. When locally synthesized within atherosclerotic intima, it can also regulate local endothelial adhesion and thrombotic states. Most importantly, it strongly and independently predicts the risk of myocardial infarction, stroke, peripheral arterial disease, and sudden cardiac death, even among apparently healthy individuals. Interestingly, although there is no direct evidence that lowering CRP reduces cardiovascular risk, smoking cessation, weight loss, and exercise all reduce CRP. Moreover, statins reduce CRP levels largely independent of their effects on LDL cholesterol. Homocysteine. Clinical and epidemiologic studies show a strong relationship between total serum homocysteine levels and coronary artery disease, peripheral vascular disease, stroke, and venous thrombosis. Elevated homocysteine levels can be caused by low folate and vitamin B intake. Homocysteinuria, due to rare inborn errors of metabolism, results in elevated levels of circulating homocysteine of levels more than 100 micromole per liter and premature vascular disease. An increase of 5 micromole per liter of homocysteine in serum elevates the risk of coronary artery disease by as much as cholesterol increase of 20 mg per deciliter. Homocysteine interacts with lysyl residues of collagen, interfering with collagen cross-linking. It forms homocysteine thiolectin, a highly reactive free radical which thiolates LDL particles. These particles tend to aggregate, are endocytosed by macrophages, and increase the tendency for atherogenesis. Lipoprotein A. Lipoprotein A or LPA is an altered form of LDL that contains the apolipoprotein B100 portion of LDL linked to apolipoprotein A. Increased LPA levels are associated with a higher risk of coronary and cerebrovascular disease independent of total cholesterol or LDL levels. The action of plasminogen is to dissolve the blood clot formed in the vascular wall by fibrinolysis. It does so by activation into plasmin, binding to fibrin and causing fibrinolysis. LPA has a structural homology with plasminogen, so it binds to fibrin and inhibits plasminogen activation. So the fibrin is not lysed and the blood clot remains. That is how the LPA promotes atherosclerosis. Other risk factors for atherosclerosis are lack of exercise or physical inactivity, competitive stressful life, and people having type A personality, obesity with BMI more than equal to 30 kg per meter square, and decreased level of HDN in blood with levels less than 40 mg per deciliter. This table shows how we can predict the risk for developing coronary heart disease by looking at the different lipid parameters. So total cholesterol level, if it is less than 200 mg per deciliter, there is low risk. 200 to 240 is borderline risk. More than 240 mg per deciliter is high risk for developing CHD. Then LDL cholesterol level less than 130 is low risk, 130 to 160 is borderline risk, and more than 160 is high risk. HDL cholesterol more than 60 is low risk, 35 to 60 is borderline risk, and less than 35 is high risk. Triglyceride level less than 150 is low risk, 200 to 400 is borderline risk, and more than 400 mg per deciliter is high risk. We can prevent the development of atherosclerosis by reducing the intake of dietary cholesterol, by increasing the consumption of vegetable oils and PUFA, which helps in esterification and excretion of cholesterol through HDL, by increasing the intake of green leafy vegetables. Green leafy vegetables have the plant sterol cytosterol, which competes with cholesterol reabsorption, by avoiding high carbohydrate diet, trans fatty acids, and cigarette, and doing exercise. Secondary prevention or treatment of atherosclerosis includes drugs like statins, ezetimibe, cholestyramine, Probucol, aspirin, proprotein convertase subtilisin, caxin 9 inhibitors or PCSK9 inhibitors, and antioxidants. Surgical interventions include coronary artery bypass surgery, carotid end arterectomy, which can reduce recurrent myocardial or cerebral events. Disorders of lipoprotein metabolism, broadly known as dyslipidemia, which includes both hypo and hyperlipoproteinemia. Fredrickson and Levy classified hyperlipidemias according to the type of lipoprotein particles that accumulate in the blood. It ranges from type 1 to type 5 hyperlipoproteinemia. This table shows different types of hypolipoproteinemias. First is familial hypo-beta-lipoproteinemia, where LDL and ApoB100 is decreased, cholesterol is decreased, triglyceride level is normal. There is decreased risk of coronary artery disease. In A-beta lipoproteinemia, levels of VLDL, LDL, ApoB48 and ApoB100 are decreased. Cholesterol is markedly decreased. Triglyceride is also decreased. There is malabsorption, mental and physical retardation, and acanthocytosis. In hypo-alpha lipoproteinemia, HDL and ApoA1 is decreased. Cholesterol is normal. Triglyceride level is normal. There is increased risk of coronary artery disease. In familial alpha lipoprotein deficiency, HDL and ApoA1 concentrations are decreased. Cholesterol is normal. Triglyceride is normal. And clinical finding is increased risk of coronary artery disease. Hyperlipoproteinemias. In type 1 hyperlipoproteinemia, there is increased level of chylomicrons and triglycerol, normal level of cholesterol, there is appearance of creamy layer over clear plasma, metabolic defect is lipoprotein lipase or ApoC2 deficiency. Clinical features are eruptive xanthoma, hepatomegaly and pain abdomen. Management is done by restriction of fat intake and supplementation with medium chain triglyceride. In type 2A, LDL and cholesterol levels are increased. Triacylglycerol is normal. Plasma is clear. Metabolic defect is LDL receptor defect or increased ApoB. Features are atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease, and tuberous xanthoma. Management is done by low cholesterol diet, decreased intake of saturated fat, increased intake of PUFA, and drugs like statins. In type 2B, LDL, VLDL, cholesterol, and triglyceride levels are increased. Plasma is slightly cloudy. Metabolic defect is increased ApoB. There is appearance of corneal arcus. Management is same with type 2A. In type 3, there is increased levels of broad beta VLDL and chylomicrons, increased levels of cholesterol and triglyceride. Plasma appears cloudy. Metabolic defect is abnormal ApoE and ApoC2. Features are Palmer xanthoma, high incidence of vascular disease. Management is done by reduction of weight, restriction of fat and cholesterol. PUFA is given and drugs. Type 4, VLDL, cholesterol and triglycerides are increased. Plasma appears cloudy or milky. Metabolic defect is overproduction of VLDL and ApoC2. Features are associated with diabetes, heart disease and obesity. Management is done by reduction of body weight, restriction of carbohydrate and cholesterol. In type 5, there is increased levels of VLDL, chylomicrons and triglyceride. Cholesterol level is normal. Plasma appears creamy or milky. Metabolic defect is secondary to other causes. Features are ischemic heart disease. Management is done by high PUFA intake and hypolipidemic drugs. Due to increased cholesterol level, there is appearance of xanthomas in hands and feet. These are known as tendon xanthomas, and this is gentalesma appearing in the upper eyelid. These are yellow patches due to increased cholesterol level. Degradation of cholesterol. The ring structure of cholesterol cannot be metabolized to carbon dioxide and water in humans. Intact sterile nucleus is eliminated from the body by conversion to bile acids and bile salts, which are excreted in the feces, and by secretion of cholesterol into the bile, which transports it to the intestine for elimination. Some of the cholesterol in the intestine is modified by bacteria before excretion. The primary compounds made are the isomers coprostenol and cholestanol, which are reduced derivatives of cholesterol. Bile acids and bile salts. Bile consists of a watery mixture of organic and inorganic compounds. Lecithin and bile salts, which are conjugated bile acids, are quantitatively the most important organic components of bile. After its synthesis in the liver, bile is either secreted into the duodenum through the common bile duct or stored in the gallbladder where not immediately needed for digestion. Structure. The bile acids contain 24 carbon atoms with 2 or 3 hydroxyl groups and a side chain that terminates in a carboxyl group. The bile acids are amphibatic molecules. Hydroxyl groups are in alpha orientation and the methyl groups are in beta orientation. Therefore, the molecules have both a polar and nonpolar phase and can act as emulsifying agents in the intestine, helping prepare dietary triglycerol and other complex lipids for degradation by pancreatic digestive enzymes. Synthesis of bile acids. Bile acids are synthesized in the liver by a multi-step multi-organelle pathway in which hydroxyl groups are inserted at specific positions on the steroid structure. The double bond of the cholesterol B ring is reduced and the hydrocarbon chain is shortened by 3 carbons, introducing a carboxyl group at the end of the chain. The most common resulting compounds, cholic acid, a triol having 3 hydroxyl groups, and cannadeoxycholic acid, a diol having 2 hydroxyl groups, are called primary bile acids. The rate limiting step in bile acid synthesis is the introduction of a hydroxyl group at carbon number 7 of the steroid nucleus by cholesterol 7-alpha hydroxylase enzyme and endoplasmic reticulum associated cytochrome P450 enzyme found only in liver. The enzyme is downregulated by cholic acid and upregulated by cholesterol. This is the pathway of bile acid and bile salt synthesis. Cholesterol having 27 carbon atoms is hydroxylated 3 times in the 3rd, 7th and 12th position to form cholestan 3,7,12 triol. One molecular propionic acid is released, so it becomes cholic acid having 24 carbon atoms. It is attached to coenzyme A to form cholyl coenzyme A, and which is conjugated with glycine to form glycocholic acid. Then cholesterol is hydroxylated 2 times in the 3rd and 7th position to form cholestan 3,7 diol. One propionic acid is released to form cannadeoxycholic acid, the another bile acid having 24 carbon atoms. It is attached to coenzyme A to form cano-deoxycholyl coenzyme A, and it is conjugated with the amino acid taurine to form taurochano-deoxycholic acid, which is a bile salt. So here in this picture, cholesterol is hydroxylated by the enzyme cholesterol 7-alpha hydroxylase. This is the rate limiting enzyme. It is stimulated by cholesterol and inhibited by cholic acid. This is the structure of cholic acid, and this is the structure of cano-deoxycholic acid. Synthesis of bile salts. Before the bile acids leave the liver, they are conjugated to a molecule of either glycine or taurine by an amide bond between the carboxyl group of the bile acid and the amino group of the added compound. These new structures are called bile salts and include glycocholic and glycocanodeoxycholic acids and taurocholic and taurochanodeoxycholic acids. Bile salts are more effective detergents than bile acids because of their enhanced amphipathic nature. Therefore, only the conjugated forms, that is the bile salts, are found in the bile. These bile salts also form sodium and potassium salts. So this is cholic acid, a bile acid, which conjugates with the amino acid glycine to form glycocholic acid, a bile salt, which also forms sodium and potassium salts. This bile acid, canodeoxycholic acid, conjugates with the amino acid taurine to form taurochanodeoxycholic acid, a bile salt, which also forms sodium and potassium salts. Action of intestinal flora on bile salts. Bacteria in the intestine can remove glycine and taurine from bile salts, regenerating the bile acids. They can also convert some of the primary bile acids into secondary bile acids by removing a hydroxyl group, producing deoxycholic acid from cholic acid and lithocholic acid from canodeoxycholic acid. So these primary bile acids, cholic acid and canodeoxycholic acid, are conjugated with glycine and taurine to form glycocholic acid, taurocholic acid, glycocanodeoxycholic acid, and taurochanodeoxycholic acid. These are primary bile salts. These are acted upon by intestinal bacteria to form secondary bile salts called glycodeoxycholic acid, taurodeoxycholic acid, glycolithocholic acid, and taurolithocholic acid. Enterohepatic circulation. Bile salts secreted into the intestine are efficiently reabsorbed and reused. The mixture of primary and secondary bile acids and bile salts is absorbed primarily in the ileum. They are actively transported from the intestinal mucosal cells into the portal blood and are efficiently removed by the liver parenchymal cells. The liver converts both primary and secondary bile acids into bile salts by conjugation with glycine and taurine and secretes them into the bile. The continuous process of secretion of bile salts into the bile, their passage through the duodenum, where some are converted to bile acids, and their subsequent return to the liver as a mixture of bile acids and salts, is termed as the enterohepatic circulation. This diagram shows enterohepatic circulation. First, from cholesterol, primary bile acids are formed in the liver. They form primary and secondary bile salts by conjugation with glycine and taurine. They are secreted into the intestine through the bile duct. Primary bile salts are deconjugated to form primary bile acids. They form secondary bile acids. Some of them are excreted in the feces, but some of them are reabsorbed from the intestine, and through the portal vein they reach the liver again, and they are again secreted in the intestine to the bile duct. So this cycle goes on. This is the enterohepatic circulation. Diseases of bile metabolism. Normal bile should have cholesterol less than 10%, bile salt more than 40%, and lecithin less than 60%. Alteration in this ratio can cause gallbladder stones. Stone in the gallbladder is known as cholelithiasis. Stone in the bile duct is known as choledocholithiasis. Inflammation of the gallbladder is known as cholecystitis, and inflammation of bile duct is known as cholangitis. 80% of the gallbladder stone is due to precipitation of cholesterol forming yellow colored stones. 20% of the gallbladder stone is due to precipitation of calcium bilirubinate forming black colored stones. This is all about cholesterol metabolism and lipoproteins. Thank you for your attention.